After exploring Natasha Tretheway's poetry, I started to ask myself, what is the biracial experience? And I thought that I was certified to answer it because I'm biracial and because I should be living it and I should be able to understand it. But what this project has taught me is that it's so much more than any one person can say and any one person can understand. So that's why this video is a collage of a multitude of biracial experiences. And I hope that it will give the world a little bit more of a glimpse to what it actually means to be biracial.
Having a multiracial identity is something that is undoubtedly holy. I think the nuance is that it's an identity that cannot yet be revealed.
Miscegenation by Natasha Tretheway. In 1965, my parents broke 2 laws of Mississippi. They went to Ohio to marry, returned to Mississippi.
They crossed the river into Cincinnati, a city whose name begins with a sound like sin, the sound of wrong, miss in Mississippi. So I think these 2 first stanzas very clearly sort of set the tone of the biracial themes in it, just mostly with like the idea of her parents committing a crime basically by marrying each other. Personally, I find that very interesting just because my parents were lucky enough to not be held back by laws that prevented them from marrying each other.
The beginning of Cincinnati is sin, the sound of wrong, and how the first syllable in Mississippi is miss, the same first syllable of miscegenation. So at that point, the interracial relationship is immoral, is sinful, is against God. A year later, they moved to Canada, followed a route the same as slaves, the train slicing the white glaze of winter, leaving Mississippi. Faulkner's Joe Christmas was born in winter, like Jesus, given his name for the day he was left at the orphanage, his race unknown in Mississippi.
My father was reading War and Peace when he gave me my name. I was born near Easter, 1966 in Mississippi. So just looking at this piece, it's really interesting to me because, well, one, even if you know nothing about War and Peace, just look at the title, War and Peace, and that's probably something that related to maybe some of the decisions that her parents made, you know, so if this is the life I'm going to pursue, if I'm going to love this person and I'm going to have a child, which is completely against the law, as the poet said, then, you know, I've got to choose, you know, do I want to take on that war or do I want to keep my peace? And then also just being biracial, I'm sure the poet is, you know, War and Peace, that's something that she deals with.
When I turned 33, my father said, "It's your Jesus year. You're the same age he was when he died. It was spring, the hills green in Mississippi."
I know more than Joe Christmas did. Natasha is a Russian name. Though I'm not, it means Christmas child, even in Mississippi.
The repeated end rhyme between the 2 words name and saying throughout the poem emphasizes that reality is a cycle of sorts. The cycle is that of history repeating itself, with society possessing the same desire to classify individuals and label them as simply as possible. In the face of a more complicated or unique existence that doesn't conform to traditions, society is prepared to write those people off as wrong and sinful. Of course, the biracial individual would fall into this category. It's kind of bleak to consider that this will continue to limit such individuals far into the future and that there's no escape from the cycle. But Tretheway plays around with sonnet structure in the 14 lines of this poem to instill a final sense of hope. The volta in the last 2 lines positions the author as different than past examples of suffering and restrictions that others like her have experienced. She's better equipped to define her own personal reality, and that thankfully she knows more than Joe Christmas did. A character who could never find a place of belonging or figure out his identity, which led to extensive despair. Tretheway has learned from those before her. Her generation has more potential than ever to move away from race being the sole means of identity and towards a state of thriving as beautifully complex people who can't be put into a box. As Natasha means Christmas child and hope for the future, so too is Tretheway a beacon of possibility for the biracial community. Her refusal to remain quiet about past injustices starts the path towards true freedom and opportunity for others like her.